you just want to help people. But what I came to learn over time is that business is actually an incredible vehicle for healing, and that it is absolutely tied to Chinese medicine. And that just like, our patients, we're always saying mind and body, they're one. Acupuncture or Chinese medicine and our business, they're also very much connected. So I really passionately believe in acupuncturists having successful businesses that are a reflection of the principles of Chinese medicine.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. Sometimes I feel like the Acupuncture Chamber of Commerce. I'm a fan of small local businesses. I'm a fan because it's a great way to live a life of your own choosing and contribute in a substantial and recognizable way to your local community. When I was younger, I got the erroneous notion in my head that anyone doing business was probably doing it at the expense of someone else. That any commerce I received meant I was taking something away from someone else. I felt guilty about making money. In time, I started to notice that doing business is not just about an exchange of money. It's an exchange of energy, meaning, and ideas. Most importantly, it's an exchange of value, and that changed everything. Because value, that goes way beyond any material object or service. Value connects to meaning. When you're doing commerce and focused on exchanging value in meaning, that is a renewable resource. And beyond that, it makes for a day well lived. Here's the other thing about running a business. It will hold up a mirror in which you can glimpse a reflection of the kind of person you are. It will show you where you're generous and where you're miserly. It will reveal how your thinking is well thought out or not, and will unflinchingly show you where you're jealous, envious, or frightened. Looking for a mindfulness practice? Running a business will surely demand that of you. Learning medicine, learning the craft, that's one thing. Learning the trade, that's something else again. The business of medicine isn't something that you can avoid. Even if you outsource the practice management portion of your practice by finding someone to hire you to do acupuncture, you'll find that market forces, competition, and taxes are all influences you'll still have to contend with. It's just that you've got someone else attending to those parts of the business, and for good reason. They should make some extra money for the effort, time, and risk that they've invested. You already know from learning acupuncture that the treatment for anything depends on the context and natural history of a problem. Truth is, the same applies to business. Even if you're satisfied with having a job so that you can just focus on practicing medicine, it will still make you a better practitioner if you understand the business of medicine. Why? Because engaging the business portion of a practice will show you very quickly where your blind spots are. And the realities of running a business is a kind of cultivative practice that will help you to be more insightful in your clinical work. But engaging the business side can be a challenge because you've learned next to nothing about it in school and maybe even learned some things that are counterproductive. In this conversation with Julie Bear Don't Walk, we explore practitioner development not by adding more clinical tools, but by tonifying the deficiencies that keep you from using those tools to their utmost in helping others. The places we hold ourselves back in business, it bleeds into our clinical work. And it's not solved with learning a new therapeutic technique. It's solved by growing into an outlook that has us transforming the limitations that we put on our own capacity. The good news is, it can also be emotionally rewarding, at times fun, and allow your business to be more profitable so that you get to help more people. Sound like fun? Let's get into it. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out the new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lau, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AccuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit AccuFastNeedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Julie Bear Don't Walk, welcome to Qiological.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I am delighted. You reached out to me. We had a little email conversation. You piqued my interest with something that's near and dear to my heart, or I should say something that's become near and dear to my heart. It wasn't always that way. You wanted to talk about business.
Yes. I didn't know much about business when I started my practice, but
Who does?
right? You just want to help people. But what I came to learn over time is that business is actually an incredible vehicle for healing, and that it is absolutely tied to Chinese medicine. And that just like, our patients, we're always saying mind and body, they're one. acupuncture or Chinese medicine and our business, they're also very much connected. So I really passionately believe in acupuncturists having successful businesses that are a reflection of the principles of Chinese medicine.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm just such a persnickety and judgmental person. I really can be. And I often hear people say this thing in our profession about, well, look, I'm a healer. I'm not a business person. Like, I just want to heal people and I just want to help. And I'm a doctor. I'm not a business person. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not right. Like, it's always rubbed me the wrong way. Again, I'm super judgmental. And, I've always just kind of like looked sideways at that. Like, well, really? Because like in our medicine, like you just said, we talk about a mind-body medicine. We talk about the fallacy that there's a separation between mind and body. Why should there be a separation between our medicine practice and the business that supports that? Like, aren't they the yin and yang of each other?
Absolutely. And if you have a robust business, you get to help more people. So you get to practice the medicine more.
Do more of what you like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you weren't always interested in business, were you?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I was pretty anti-business. My background is in the arts, and I worked at literal nonprofits for a lot of my career before studying Chinese medicine. And I'm a Gen X kid who was like, grew up in the era of slacker. Like, oh no, I don't need money. Money's kind of gross or whatever. And what I realized is I came to Chinese medicine to heal myself, of course, ultimately, right? My family history of trauma. I started getting acupuncture. I loved what it did. I wanted to help more people feel good like this. And so, I spent 4.5 years at PCOM Chicago. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to help people heal. Thinking like, oh, I've done my healing. But a lot of the healing was actually financial trauma, to put a dramatic phrase to it, and living in poverty and not having a lot of like financial agency. And so as my practice grew, I got to like a good size solo practice, like 28, 30 people a week. And I was thrilled. When I was sitting in my practice management class, I was like, that is the dream. I'm going to see 28 to 30 people a week and I will have it made. And what I realized, my kid who was in first grade had just started private school. My husband decided to do a career pivot. And I'm like, it's not that hard to see 28 to 30 patients a week. And now I'm starting to see on Facebook, people have bigger practices. Like, could I do that without?
And I could use a little more money.
This would be really nice. And I hired a business coach and I got really busy. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. So.
And then I got a little burned out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get to the burnout piece in a minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know anyone who doesn't face that at some point.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're all like Icarus. Oh, I got wings, and look how high I can go, until the gods get a little upset with you. But we'll get to that in a minute. I hired a business coach. So what were you not? What I'm curious to know about hiring that business coach is what you learned from them that allowed you to change this. Because my guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are some basics that are just the basics. It doesn't matter if you're an acupuncturist or a dress designer or an artist or a maker of fine coffee beans. Business is business is business is business. There's some principles, is my guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really was about clear systems and clear communication. And I think it's like, well, I might theoretically know they exist and I should do that, but actually having the confidence and having somebody model that for me. Like, oh, here's somebody who is really successful in practice. He's a good and decent human being, and he has a very robust practice. And I'm like, well, if he can do it, I can figure this out. So it was really a matter of, okay, theoretically, I know this exists, but having somebody model it. And then it was a little bit fake it till you make it. Like, I remember when patients would come to me when I first started my practice, I would get literal plum pit chi at the end of the treatment. And I'm like, do you want to come back? And they would be like, I don't know, do I? Like you've got a catch in your throat. And this is weird. So it was really,
What was catching in your throat at that point?
I think I was afraid. I didn't really have the confidence. I wasn't sure if I could really help them. I mean, I was dying to help them. I loved Chinese medicine. I loved helping people. But I was afraid to inconvenience them or ask them to make that commitment and to basically trust me.
Yeah.
So there was the fear of like, am I good enough? Who, me? Like little me?
Well, you just said something else. I mean, look, there's that question we always ask about ourselves. Am I good enough?
Yeah.
I don't know any human being that doesn't have that, except for certain psychopaths.
Right. Yeah.
They don't have a problem with that.
Right. Right.
But most people, we do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the good enough. But here's the other thing that I think I just heard you said. Am I trustworthy?
Right. Yeah.
That's a different issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, can they trust me to get them the results? And my model, it's interesting because I came to Chinese medicine. My mother was very ill growing up, lots of health and emotional issues. And I wanted to fix her. I wanted to save her. And I couldn't save her. She died. She passed away of her illnesses. And I did learn in the process, the art of compassionate detachment. But I think I came to Chinese medicine because I wanted to save people. I wanted to fix them. And I think that's where some of the trustworthiness, it's an incredible burden to carry, to want to fix people or to save them. And ultimately, I don't think that's our patients want to have agency around their health. And so really, a lot of what I do with my coaching clients is teach a collaborative model of care where you're both showing up, you're both doing your best, but really systematizing how to establish that relationship of collaboration.
I like that. Collaboration. Yeah, there is that thing. And I suspect, sorry, there's a cat jumping on the table. I suspect that, many of us go through this as a developmental phase. We really think that it's our job to make people better. It's a very salvational kind of thing. And we judge ourselves and we judge our practices by how well our patients are doing. We have a lot of ego in it.
Huge ego. And at first that's really delightful. And then it's
delightful? How's that delightful?
Well, not delightful. Let me rephrase that. At first, I think, and I see this in early on practitioners, you're helping people and you get this huge ego hit of like, I'm helping. But the dark side of that, and you're like, I'm great. The dark side of it is it's an incredible burden to carry. And when you're not getting the clinical results that you want, then it's also your identity is so tied up. Like I need to be smarter. I'm not good enough. And it's this very outward sort of validation process, an external validation. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that I think is problematic with this, not just what we do to ourselves with it. I think it's a horrible burden to put on our patients because even though we're not saying it, there's a part of us, it's like when you're young and you're dating someone and maybe they like you more than you like them and you notice how needy they are for your attention.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah, and that can really get in the way of the work that we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that question of ego, I remember when it started pivoting in my practice, when I was like, wait a minute, this has to be a collaboration. I don't want at first I was like, oh, this is nice for my confidence. And then I would have patients who were like, you're everything. And I'm like, wait a minute, this does not feel good. Like, I don't want to be the everything. Like, this is weird a little bit. So then I would come into a room and they're like, you've helped me so much. And I'm like, actually, let's reframe that. We've done a lot of work together. Here are the things you've shown up to do. You've shown up every week. You've committed to this process. You've done this, you've done that. I've facilitated this transformation, but I'm not waving a magic wand making you better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those funny things with acupuncture because sometimes, like not always, but often enough, it does seem magical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You put a few pins in and people feel like they haven't felt in longer than they can remember. Right. That's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So there is that. But yeah, I like what you're saying about collaboration. Tell me more about how to build that into the clinical encounter, especially if you're newer, right? If you've been at it for a while, clinical will kind of beat that into you in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you're more getting started, how can you avoid some of the pitfalls?
Yeah, I think that it's about, when you're onboarding a patient or you're having that initial patient contact, what you're doing is you're creating a narrative or a structure by which you can work together. So one of the ways that I would communicate that, and I teach my coaching clients this, I say, okay, I'm going to be really honest that you're having this symptom because your body's telling you things aren't functioning efficiently. And the way acupuncture works is we're going to remind your body how to function efficiently again. And then you won't notice the symptom anymore. That's theoretically how it goes. And the way that we do that, we need a container by which to change the pattern. And so we're going to do acupuncture, typically weekly. And I would tell patients, I tell every single patient 12 visits. And I said, I'd love to tell you that you're special, but 12 visits is generally a big enough container by which we can reach our goal. But more importantly than the 12 visits is actually 2 weeks of sustained symptom relief. So we might get those 2 weeks of sustained symptom relief at like 6 and 7. And then maybe we go 10 days between a treatment. Maybe we go then 2 weeks. And then by mutual agreement, maybe we come up with a maintenance plan, or you call me when you get the first whisper of a symptom again. But it's just creating a container from the outset of, and I would literally say this to my patients, I'm going to do everything I can to help you reach this health goal or alleviate this symptom. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is just to commit to coming in consistently. That's how we're going to collaborate and figure this out together. And so it's them committing on the schedule, committing to being present at a consistent time, once a week typically. And that's where the alchemy happens.
You get those commitments? This is
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy because people would then, you get those results and then people refer like crazy. And they're like, oh, Susan told me to come in. I know it's 12 visits. You don't even have to tell me that. She already told me. That's how it works here.
Wow. I find I'm more like swinging at a baseball. I find that my patients give me like 3 swings and I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're checking in every week. So you're not just like la-di-da, whatever. You're just here captive for 12 visits. The other way is that you're teaching patients how to pay attention to their symptoms. So
yes, I get that piece.
Yeah. And that's the other part of collaboration.
Yeah, for sure. And, I've noticed as well, sometimes people will forget that they ever had a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they just get back to feeling better, but now they find something else that bothers them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So sometimes they'll be like, yeah, well, I'm about the same as when I started.
Right. Yep.
Because they forgot they don't have back pain now.
Right. Exactly. Or there's the getting curious and you kind of reframing things for patients. You come in, it's the 4th visit, it's somebody with back pain, and you come in and say, okay, tell me about your back. When did you notice the symptoms start coming back? And because if you walk in and say, okay, how you doing today? And they're like, yeah, my back still hurts. I don't know if acupuncture is working for me. And inside you're like, I know it's doing something.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's just follow that for a second.
Yeah.
What about for the people, and I've had them, I'm sure you've had them, our listeners have had them, you're 5 treatments in and you're doing all your due diligence. It's not just that they're not paying attention, but they're actually not getting better.
Yeah. Well,
what do you do in those situations?
You acknowledge it. You acknowledge, like, look, I want to acknowledge I am doing everything I can. I want to acknowledge that I thought we'd be further along than we are at this point in the treatment. I'm going to pivot my treatment approach and we're going to do this, but let's have an honest conversation about it, right? And I think that actually builds trust with a patient.
Oh, for sure. Now, I bet you had some plum pitching in the beginning of having those conversations. Well, did you?
Oh, I hope they don't say anything. I'm just going to keep trying, and then they're going to fall off the schedule. But I think that acknowledging it at the beginning, and you're like, okay, you're going through some questions, and then you just say, I really wish things had shifted more. Like it's time to pivot treatment approach, or it's time to do this or this. Like I'm really committed to helping you, and I have to be honest. The things that seem obvious are not obvious. We're really learning how your body is responding. Everybody's is unique. So I think that opening that part of the conversation up, and a lot of times people have continued to work with me because of that honesty. And they're like, we're not getting this, but I'm sleeping better. My energy's a little better. I know I still have this, but I'm seeing some side effects, some beneficial side effects to the acupuncture. And I think part of it too is just the ritual of, I know I'm doing something for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suspect a lot of our patients are doing multiple somethings.
Yes.
For themselves when they're coming to see us.
Yeah.
Because we're generally not the first stop on the block.
Right. But often the modality of last resort. I mean, I don't know how many times you've heard in your clinic, like, I've been everywhere. You're my last hope. Like, I've tried everything. And so I guess I'm finally here. And I would get that a lot in my clinic.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? That's a lot of pressure. I've had people say that as well. They say things like, you're my last hope. And I remember as a younger practitioner thinking, yeah, but I got Chinese medicine, so watch this.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Asking for trouble. And now I hear people say it, and it's a terrible thing to hear. You're my last hope.
Yeah.
How do you work with that?
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
So it is. And I think you validate that and just say, I want to acknowledge you have tried a lot. We're going to work systemically. We're going to connect every visit to make sure we're making the progress that we both want to be making. And, you look for the in, you look for the little in, and then you kind of highlight, like, here's one small win. I actually want to share a little story. I remember a patient coming in, and she was like, and I have prolapse, and I have fibromyalgia, and I have Lyme disease, and I have this. And she said, have you ever seen anyone as sick as me? And I said, I have. And, that sounds really terrible. And I said, my very first question to you, and I said, I mean this with no shame, no blame whatsoever, but a genuine, heartfelt question. Do you feel like you can get better? Like, do you want to feel better? And she was like, nobody's ever asked me that question before. And I said, if you are committed to feeling better, I will do everything I can to help you feel better. But I said, that's kind of where we need to start.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Do you want to get better? That's a question I have not asked my patients ever.
I think that was like a very stark example, but I think it was someone who was very much she was a lovely human being, and she was suffering greatly. But I could sense in the conversation that she didn't see it as a hope, right? And so I said, your homework, I'm not giving you herbs right off the bat. You're already taking a ton of pharmaceuticals. I said, your homework this is a skill I teach my coaching clients, is words are medicine. And I said, I want you to write out every day and say it. If you really want to get better, it is entirely possible for my body to heal and feel better. It's possible for me to feel better. And I said, I just want you to say it, kind of like a mantra, words are drugs, words are medicine, every day. And she did. And she came in, and I remember, I think the third or fourth visit, she was like, she kind of went on her tangent. She's like, and then this and this and this. And I was just listening. And then she looked at me and she's like, okay, actually, these things are better.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like it wasn't a power struggle. I wasn't trying to win it. It was, I just wanted to open up the real healing. I was helping her prolapse, I wanted her to have more good days. I wanted her to see what was possible with some of her commitments, because the emphasis was so much on how broken everything was, right? And a lot was. I mean, that's true. But I think that it gets to this question of agency. And this is something I'm really fascinated by. And I think this is how it relates to having a robust clinic, is that I can't give you the details of the study. I know I saw it or somebody told me about it, that clinical outcomes are actually better when a patient knows why they got better and they have some agency in it, rather than just like, I went there, I don't know what happened, and I got better. I could go at any time again, right? But if you're educating your patients along the way, they have more agency with their health. And they're like, I feel a little more empowered about what I can do with this. And that's the best of all possible worlds, that, when I tell a patient like, hey, why don't you do, 5 minutes of Qigong a day? And then they start doing some Qigong, and I don't see them for years. And then they call 2 or 3 years later and they're like, oh, hey, I have this weird thing. I haven't been in because I started doing Qigong. And I'm like, hallelujah, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I want to come back for just a moment to this woman. I hear people say it too. They usually call themselves a hot mess. Have you ever seen such a hot mess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, it's just a phrase they like to use here in the Midwest. But this point that you bring up, a belief that people have, unspoken, maybe lived but not spoken, of I can't get better, or maybe I don't deserve to get better, or in some cases with some people, and I don't mean this in any way to point fingers and create blame, what if the problem that they have is a solution to a bigger problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I hate my job and I don't want to do it. And I want my family to support me more. So if I'm sick, then I don't have to go do that job I hate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not saying that people do this consciously or
no
malicious. Well, maybe some do it maliciously, but again, the very few psychopaths in the world. But, a lot of times people have honest to God problems that they're trying to solve, and their, air quotes here, illness is kind of a solution to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, our bodies are so wise. They're giving us information all the time, right? And so part of having, just exactly like this example you were giving, when I talk with my coaching clients, part of it is asking what's going on with your body. Because when something's going on with your business, when you're avoiding a conversation with an associate because you don't want to rock any boats, but you're like, I used to love my clinic and I don't like going in there anymore. I keep getting these headaches because I don't want to have a conversation with my associate. It's a similar kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so you have to keep the chi of your business, of your practice, really vital. So because it's a body, it's a being, it's an entity. And it will show up in the practitioner body or in the body of the clinic, like patient numbers will go down. And I've seen it again and again. Like there are a lot of really good employees. I just want to say that first. There are a lot of really amazing employees. I'm an advocate for people receiving support in their clinic. But there are some times when you have a not right fit employee and you're kind of avoiding it. And then, they quit or you decide to let them go. And suddenly patient numbers go way up. It's like, oh, you cleared the chi. You cleared the chi of your clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the I want to come back for a moment. Like business attitudes. You were talking earlier when you were first starting out, thinking that money was kind of yucky, right? You traced it back to, well, I was a Gen X slacker. Money's a little bit evil. And my suspicion is that there's probably more than a few of us.
Yeah.
We don't have the greatest relationship with money for whatever reason. Look, there's multiple reasons why you might not have a great relationship with money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are patterns also that live in the body, right? You learn things growing up, like it's not safe to have money, or somebody might take the money, or I need to hold on to all the money, or I need to spend all the money, or I just don't even want to deal with it because my parents fought about it, whatever. But it's a pattern. And so when you recognize the pattern, when you sort of say like, okay, here's the pattern, then you can kind of begin to treat it and heal it. So for me, money was, my stepfather had his own business, but my mom would take money from the business all the time. It was complicated, whatever. And so I'm like, well, if
it's a family, it's complicated.
Exactly. Like if I get money, I better spend it because my mom might take it. Like my mom's going to take it.
Mom's going to take it. My mom's going to steal my money, so I better spend it.
Yeah. And so I was always like, oh, it's safer spent. Also, you get dopamine spending money. But if I was like, I don't really need it. I work in the arts. I work in a really cool profession that like, whatever. It's cool to not have too much money. But when you start.
Yes. I want to dig into this for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's cool to not have too much money.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I'm not a Gen X. I'm more of a boomer, that kind of hippie generation, like the end of it, and money was,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's something we looked down on. It was cool to look down on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my parents were boomers. Absolutely. Yeah. It was like, oh, we're going to garden our own food and do this. So we grew up actually the family narrative is we're broke, which is, the narrative of that, of like, no, we're broke. They meant money. It can mean so many other things. So when I started realizing like, actually, you can do a lot with money. You can buy good organic food. You can get acupuncture. You have a lot more agency within the capitalist culture we live in when you have some money. And that's actually really empowering and healing. Because one of the things that speaking of agency, a patient comes to you and they're like, I don't really feel like I have any agency over my health. And you're like, actually, your back just doesn't go out willy-nilly. These are some of the triggers. And they're like, okay, I can live with that. If I do this, I can do the thing I like doing, but I'm also going to do some stretching, put some magnesium on, take my herbs. And then my back isn't just going to shock me and I have no agency around my back or whatever. Same thing with having a practice of like, well, I don't have any patience. I don't have any agency. And so when you start to learn how to cultivate the chi of your business, you have agency in your income, in how much income you can make, right?
Yeah, for sure. How do you change personal beliefs around money being bad? And like if you have too much of it, I know this is something that I dealt with when I was younger. That if I'm doing a little better than the friends that I have, well, of course they're going to notice that. And because we all shared a similar value of, well, money is actually not a great thing, but like you're making more money than the rest of us. It didn't go well with the friend group. It's like I couldn't stay with that group of people if I wanted to do better with my life.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that kind of there's work to do around money narratives. And so this reminds me of, I quit drinking alcohol when I was 33 years old. And I lived in Seattle, worked in the arts, and all of my friends drank, right? And I have a huge family history of addiction and alcoholism in my family. So it was a really good choice for me to quit drinking, right? I mean, I was an alcoholic, or I guess I still am technically, even though it's been 20 years. So I quit drinking and I'm like, oh, my friends might not like this, but I have to do this for my health. And because I want to be in a different place than my family 20 years from now.
Yes.
Right? I could see the road that would lead. I could also see that like wait a minute, I wouldn't mind having a car that like I know is going to run. Or,
oh, isn't it great?
Yeah.
You like get in, you turn the key, and it always goes on.
Yes.
I remember the first car I had where like every time I put the key in and turned it, it just went on. Like I never had to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a great, there's such it's good for the kidneys, honestly. It's not this fear of like the bottom could drop out at any time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. This is great. I'm so glad we're talking about this because I realize that there are like bifurcation points. And sometimes the choices that get made for our own behalf, the choices we make on our own behalf, it really will take us down a different path. And there are different people that inhabit that path than the path that I had walked on previously. There's a lot of loss that goes with letting go of limitations.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So appropriate. We're having this conversation in autumn, the season of like letting go and making those, and what's going to give you life? What is the breath of inspiration? What are you choosing? What are your values? And sometimes those are kind of hard choices. There's still some grief involved. I still really like those art people, but it was really important for me to choose a different path. I mean, I say art people, I mean the people I drank with all the time.
In the art scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of art scene were you in there?
I worked in museums. I was a researcher that helped write the explanations of the artwork on the walls at the Henry Art Gallery and the Frye Art Museum. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I worked at the Microsoft Art Collection. So that's where I really learned how to write.
Holy smokes. That's a really, okay, I know this is a little bit off topic here, but like, how did you find your way into that? That's a really curious way of interfacing with the arts and the public.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I was telling you right before we started our recorded conversation, I went to University of Washington and I did 2 degrees simultaneously. I got a degree in comparative history of ideas with a heavy emphasis on systems theory. That's my, precursor to Chinese medicine. But I also got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in sculpture. So hands-on stuff. And I'm always a very practical person. And I did these 2 degrees a little bit later than right out of high school. And a friend was working at the museum and I'm like, that seems like a very practical way to integrate this. So I just I got an internship and then I just turned it into a career. And I still made art, but I was like, I want to do the thing. Yeah. I think that it comes down to chi and clarity of vision. I had this terrible job. I was an assistant for a feng shui real estate agent after I finished these degrees. And she'd gone out of town.
A feng shui real estate agent.
Yes. And I was really interested in the feng shui part. This was before I studied Chinese medicine. But she went out of town and she's like, okay, you have a degree in art. I want you to paint these vines on the corner of this wall. And I was in her house and I laid on the floor on the carpet and I'm like, I hate this job so much. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. No shade. I hope she's not listening. But
look, it's true.
Yes. But I had a clarity of vision.
Yes.
On that floor. And I had no money at this time. I mean, I was literally eating ramen and frozen and canned corn. I think that's how much money I had.
Uh-huh.
And
I hate this job.
I have no money. And I said, I'm going to go work at the Microsoft Art Collection. And I was like,
that's what came up for you. That's what came out of that.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so I literally went into her computer and I emailed the curator for the Microsoft Art Collection. I was like, hey, can I have an informational interview? And I got one and then he hired me.
Oh, that's fabulous.
But it was like the chi had to get clear. The chi had to get so bad I had to make a pivot.
For sure. I can think of a number of jobs that I've had, really shitty jobs, like awful. Like, what the hell am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you know what my parents said about getting a college degree? Maybe they were right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Well, this was after 2 degrees.
Yeah. Okay. I had this was in the middle of me dropping out. This is after I dropped out of school and before I'd gone back. I guess they call it a gap year now.
Right.
I had like 6 of them. but
Nice.
but yeah, for sure there are those moments, those utter moments of despair and forlornness and like, what the hell am I doing? It really falls apart.
Yeah. Well, I think that was some of those moments were a catalyst to saying, I want to have a successful business and it's safe for me to do that. And really, it was easier to say it's for the sake of my family. So for me, I was like, whatever, I might not ever buy a house, but my husband's Native American and so is our daughter. And it was really important for us to be able to buy property for that reason. And so I said, okay, it's going to be a goal of mine that my practice is successful enough that we can afford to buy a house.
Yeah, that's a great goal. It's good to have goals like that.
Mm-hmm. It is. Absolutely. And that way,
and it,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I mean, in that way, money's not evil. It's a vehicle for, in our case, transforming some generational trauma, genocide, and taking land away. But it was also like, again, good for the kidneys, like the stability. Like, oh no, we have a house. Okay. There's a level of stability in that. Not that I'm for all, being predictable, boring, and average, but there's something about a system and something about stability that allows for a lot of creativity and flourishing.
I really like your discernment here. That is an element in the kidney that needs stability and needs to be firmed. Everything can rest on that.
Yeah.
But if you're dispersing everything because you're just kind of wild, or maybe you don't care, or maybe you don't know how to get something done, but you don't realize you don't know how to get something done, and so you're just thrashing.
Yeah, yeah. So, kidneys are the seat of wisdom or knowledge. And so gaining business knowledge also creates some stability in your practice.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
What are some aspects of a practice that you consider to be like those core kidney stabilizing elements?
I think so a lot of times people are like, oh, I need better marketing. I need better marketing. And I say, we can talk about marketing, but actually let's talk about patient retention first. Let's talk about building relationships. And by retention, I mean, it's a clinical, like a very technical term of like how long you're going to hold patients, but it's really about cultivating relationships and doing so with clear communication and collaboration. So often I'll start there with my coaching clients. I had a conversation this week. Somebody has a very large clinic, insurance, multiple employees. And she said, we had 95 new patients last month. Like, why aren't our numbers going up? And I said, it's a retention thing. Like we just need to work on the systems that your associates are communicating really clearly with patients, clearly, ethically, heart-centeredly about expectations for treatment plan. And I said, you don't need to spend any more money on advertising or any more chi on advertising. It's like focus inward. So we talk about retention and then a marketing system. If that piece, if it's like, okay, my retention's really good, but I need new chi coming in, then we talk about a marketing system. But as people grow their clinics, it really is about cultivating a really good team culture. Maybe you have a front desk person, maybe you bring on an associate, and then you're growing and you have a couple of associates, or you decide to bring on a massage therapist. There's a lot of growth edges with that about, well, it was fine when it was just me, but now there are people who have personalities and they have moods and they have irritations. And so I teach a system. I did not invent it. It was developed at Thai Sophia. And it is a system of micro-mindfulness, but it's very practical. And if you teach your team these skills, then you have a shared vocabulary for navigating being human together. So, for example, I had 3 associates in my clinic, and invariably one would be in a bad mood, or whatever. Maybe they got in a fight with their husband. Something was going on. Maybe they were irritated with me. Not out of the question. And because I'm bossy, but I would say, okay, I could match your mood, just like I could match a patient's mood who's coming in, and then I'm going to be drained at the end of the day. But I would say, let's take a beat. Clearly we need to clear the air. Let's have a conversation for curiosity. That's one of the skills, is curiosity, and figure this out together. And so we'd sit down and I would say, let's each choose our mood, our intention, because that's another one of the skills. Let's choose our intention with this conversation. So we're kind of opening it in a nice, like, ritual way. And they were game for this, right? Because they knew these skills. And so I would say, my commitment is presence. I'm committed. My mood is presence, and I'm very committed to being present and listening to you and what you have going on. And they might say, okay, well, my mood is clarity or something like that, right? Like, I want to get clear. And so then we could have a conversation and clear any static that came up. And the static about a contract or static about a system or a process. But it was a very human way to do it. Instead of being like, I hate my job because associates are crazy or they're not doing what I say or whatever. There's room to be human there and to cultivate relationships so that your whole clinic feels good.
So what you built into that practice of yours, how do I say this? It's more like you were creating a certain kind of a culture.
Yeah. It's like you're designing a team culture with clear intention of like, hey, we're going to treat each other as human beings with kindness and respect. And I mean, I had to show up and own my stuff too. I remember walking in and being like something, and then I would pause and say, hey, I just want to acknowledge I'm cranky today. And they're like, I know.
Yeah.
I know you're cranky
Obviously.
today. And I'm like, I also want you to know it has nothing to do with you whatsoever. I've got a teenager and I'm worried about them or I'm irritated with them and I'm bringing it to work. So I just want to acknowledge this and own it. And now we're going to set the mood for the clinic today. And like the chi is clear, right?
So you've got some common language and some common agreements on how to deal with the rough spots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it helps because then, my associates could come to me and say, hey, can we have a conversation for clarity or for curiosity around this particular issue? And they know I would listen.
I love that term, conversation for curiosity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just kind of unwinds the chi. My husband's a marriage and family therapist. And it's funny, we were walking this weekend and he said, I was talking to a couple and I said, if you could just open a little space for curiosity. And I was like, hey, that's what I tell my clients.
It can be a challenge. It sounds like such a nice thing. Oh, curiosity. That's wonderful. I love curiosity. But man, when you're in the midst of some kind of a kerfuffle, I could care less about curiosity. I just want what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are some skills to get to curiosity, which is.
Yeah. So how do you get to curiosity?
Yeah, well, there are 12 of these skills, and one of them is literally just breath of like, okay, treatment room's a good example for this. So you come in and maybe it's a new patient or a patient comes in and they're really upset. And I would notice my body would start leaning forward and I'm mirroring their neurons. And I'm like, oh no, now I'm in their upset. I'm not that effective as a clinician when I'm in their upset. So I would just even noticing my body and I would sit back and I'm like, Julie, your job right now is to breathe. And if I would just It took no efforting on my part, really. I would just start breathing pretty deeply. And invariably, it changes the chi in the room. And then they would get calmer because they could mirror my neurons, right? And so then seeing patients all day, you're not drained at the end of the day because you've just been breathing all day.
Yeah.
And there are times with an employee or with my husband sometimes that I'm just like,
imagine that.
Good. All the swear words. And I'm like, all you need to do right now, Julie, is breathe. You don't have to do anything else, but just if you can be present enough to just find your breath and not even breathe perfectly, but just like find it and notice it. It opens up a little bit of space from the reactivity, right? I mean, I'm a redhead, like I'm reactive. I'm also a judgy kind of bitchy person. You didn't say you were bitchy, but I'm kind of an irritable person.
I'm not really bitchy. I'm more grumpy.
Okay. Nice. I'm impatient, and that can make me feel irritable.
I don't know. I've always found impatient to be kind of a virtue.
Yeah.
Not putting up with this.
Right. So
this is great. Yeah, finding the breath. It also makes me think about, or it brings a question to mind, really, of whether you're in the clinic or with your spouse or your kid. There's some challenging situations. The question is, all right, whose neurons are in charge here? Right? If you let the patient's neurons be in charge, all right, now you're off your center and you're all caught up with whatever they're caught up with. And, we know how that goes. I have a very similar thing with you. People often tell me I have a calming voice. Well, I have a calming voice because I've learned over the years with my patients when they're upset, I don't so much go for the deep breath, although I don't go for the deep breath. I lower my voice just a little and I speak a little bit slower. And that's my way of taking myself out of that, being caught up in their, maelstrom of whatever's going on. Unhook my mirror neurons from theirs, so to speak. I love that neurobiological idea. It's really true. We're social animals. We mirror each other very, very profoundly. And yeah, so the question is like, okay, so whose mirror neurons are in effect or in charge? Can I bring myself into a calming place and then they'll mirror me, or am I going to let myself be taken away with theirs?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes when you have an employee or an associate or an employee and you're like, okay, did they just, the phraseology I use is like, did they flip my switch? Right? They did something and I'm irritated and I'm like, oh, now so-and-so is in charge of my mood. And it's like, no, I'm in charge of my mood.
Yeah.
We just have to let's get to some curiosity here. But it's about writing the chi. And that's a leadership skill, right? Because if you are always in reaction to team members, then you're going to hate your job.
Oh, yeah.
Or you're like, why do I have a team? This isn't fun anymore. But if it's that like, oh no, we all have agency here. We're showing up. I know how to lead a team. I know how to kind of direct the chi and cultivate it. And it actually, so many more people are helped this way. Then it can be a really gratifying experience. Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner. Because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital chi. And that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing as an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
Tell me more about being a leader. So often leaders are looked at as, well, they're at the top of the hierarchy and it's a hierarchy and it's all unfair anyway. And, we should take the man down.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, there's that piece. Often leaders are seen as, well, they got there in a position that they're in, probably by bad means, and it's unfair. So,
Right.
And yet, I get where you're coming from. Look, if you're with a group of people and you want to help them, that's a leadership position. And a leader is in a different place than the people that are being led.
Yeah.
You've got a vision that they don't. Especially if you own the damn clinic. You better have a vision. So
Absolutely.
How do you work with, on one hand, being that leader that has that vision and can help people, and often the stories that we tell about how rotten leaders are?
Well, I think it's helped it's good to start in the treatment room, because patients want a leader in the treatment room, right? They want to know that you have a plan. And I remember a patient, she's an MD, and she said, I like coming to your clinic. And she'd seen some other acupuncturists around who are really good acupuncturists locally. And I said, why do you like coming to our clinic? And she said, because you guys tell me what to do. She said, I know you have a plan. And I know you're really clear about that. And she said, they were all good, but I just you guys tell me what to do. And so I think there's something when you sort of own that leadership in the treatment room, the patient can rest of okay, I don't have to just Google this and figure it all out myself. And when you're saying, this is how we're going to help you reach that goal, we're going to structure the visits like this and that kind of thing. So it's similar with the team or in your clinic that a lot of times it's I want everyone to like me. I started out that way for sure. I'm I don't want to upset anyone. I don't want to have to ask them to do stuff. But it gets really confusing because when somebody decides to be an associate, and I had associates who were I don't want my own practice. I want to be an associate. It's great that you love the business stuff. I don't. And so I would say okay, well, here's what I want you to do. And I had this very wood element associate who started her own practice when I closed mine. I was here, I already found you an office. But anyway, she wanted the clear directionality. And she's I said, oh, well, cultivate relationships with patients, because she's very technical, get them better right away. And I said, well, just what you need to do is cultivate relationships, these points with people. So it's a collaboration. And she said, literally don't know how to do that. Tell me how to do it and I'll do it. And so she wanted the leadership.
Teachable.
Yeah. Very teachable. And so teachable. She was very ready to open her own clinic, right? She grew into that space after working with me for 2 or 3 years, really. But I think it's when you have that clarity, people kind of know the chi flows, right? So it's here's the function. What's the function of the liver? The function of the liver is to move things. And then from the liver, the heart's okay, I've got wood. Now I can be fire. Fire, I can be earth. And it's a generational cycle. So if everybody kind of knows what their role is and you cultivate a team where those elements are pretty balanced, you have a lot of good harmony and flow.
I think I just heard something else in response to my musing on leader, what makes for a good leader. You're talking about guidance.
Yes.
Beginning with, as a practitioner in clinic, providing guidance for your patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
People want to know that someone capable is in charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's nothing more frustrating. You're okay, I'm busy enough. I'm going to hire an associate. Then you're okay, you're here. And they're what do I do? I'm your employee. What do I do? And you're see the patients. And then the clinic owner will be why isn't your patient retention? What's happening with your patient numbers? What's going on there? And they're I don't know. And you're well, hold on to them better, but you don't have a system by which to guide them or teach them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you're going to be bringing on employees or associates, be prepared to do a whole lot of mentoring.
I think mentoring to the degree that you want to. So I was talking to a coaching client yesterday, and she said, look, I have an associate. I don't want to have to teach her everything I know about my 20 years of experience with women's health. And I said, that's fair. If you that's a good, clear voice for you. That if I said, here's where you can guide her and you can point her in this direction. But as a leader, you also have to kind of understand where you're best and what you want to do. That's part of a leadership quality, right? So kind of what your zone of genius is. If just being a practitioner, I treated a lot of pain in my clinic, but I was not an orthopedic needler. I did it with channel theory and I did it in different ways. And orthopedics get great results, but I never was interested in being an orthopedic acupuncturist.
But you could treat orthopedic conditions because you understood acupuncture.
Yes, exactly. And so kind of understanding here's how I want to be a leader. And this is how I want to lead my team. These are things I love doing. These are things I hate doing. So, but then you can grow your team. So you hire people to do the things you hate doing. That's good leadership too.
Yeah. Well, knowing what to delegate, when to delegate it, And ideally enough about it so that you can assess how the person's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I do have sometimes coaching clients who are like, okay, I grew a team. I can do this. I don't want to, but now I realize like I can do it and I can do it decently well. But I don't want to. And that's okay too. So sometimes it's about expanding a team and growing. And then sometimes it's about contracting so that you're really cultivating what you love in your practice. And I think that's where it gets to the having a nourishing practice rather than just a big practice. It's like, well, what's the practice that's going to nourish you based upon your chi and what you want to do, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And I think at different times, we have different developmental learning tasks, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so something will be really interesting, or we want to go at something, or we want to learn something, or we're drawn to working in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get exactly what you're aiming at. And I know I found this for myself, and I arrive and I go, wow, that was amazing. This is actually not what I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm capable. I didn't know if I'd be capable or not.
Mm-hmm.
Am I capable? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Is it what I really want? Oh, gosh, I'm capable, but that's not really what I want.
Yes.
At least at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Chinese medicine is the qi moves and you grow and develop. And so you don't, even if you practice for 20, 30, 40 years, you don't have to have the same practice the whole time, right?
I don't think it's possible to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're going to stay in the game for more than 20 plus years, you're probably going to have different flavors of practice.
Yep, absolutely.
That's my guess.
Yeah. I mean, I came to this style of coaching and my commitment to helping people have really nourishing practices. I hired a really good business coach. I got really busy. And it was very yang focused, which is exactly what I needed. I was like, I need to know that I can earn a better income doing this. And I had some.
Yes. Otherwise, you're laying on the floor thinking about painting vines on the wall.
Yes, exactly. So I was like, okay. And I got to the point where I was seeing 110 patients a week. And I was like, I need an associate. I need.
Yourself? You yourself, 110 patients a week.
Yes. Yeah. And with wait lists every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, how did you manage that? Okay, that's something.
It was fun.
How did you manage that kind of single person? Just like you in your clinic by yourself?
Oh, no, I had a front desk person. I had an amazing front desk. I had an amazing office manager. Amazing.
Yeah. And in a revolving door, well oiled with WD-40 to keep people moving through.
Yeah, but
still, that's quite a few people.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing, though. I mean, when you do it, it can feel like you're doing qigong all day. So when I hired my office manager, she was taking over for a really good one who decided to go to Chinese medicine school. And she was a patient. I hired a patient to be my office manager. And she started training and she said, Julie, oh my God, I had no idea your clinic was this busy. When I was a patient, I always thought I was the only one here. And I'm like, that's good. That's really good. She said, I had no idea how many patients you helped every week. And she's like, it's fine. But when the qi is flowing, it wasn't a mill. It wasn't some acupuncture mill. It was just qigong throughout the day. But I would go home kind of cranky sometimes. Actually, my husband might say frequently, because I wasn't doing some of the micro-nourishing habits. I mean, I'm pretty fiery. I'll just go. I'll just go and go and go. And I can burn myself out. And I hired another coach, Jade Connolly Duggan, whose parents were two of the founders of Thai Sophia. And this is where I learned the micro-mindfulness practices. And when I started practicing these in the treatment room with patients, I remember going home and I had a 35 patient day, and I came home and it was 7 p.m. And I actually wanted to have a conversation with my husband. And when it was, time to do like bedtime routine with my kid, I was like really engaged. And I wasn't like, just please go to sleep, hurry up, go to sleep, because I was wiped out. So those practices really helped me develop a nourishing practice and helped me to expand my team so that I was like, I love doing Chinese medicine. I also know that patients will be better served if there's a little more, if there's a bigger team to help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can only do so much in one day as one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean, we all have a limit. That's why there's wait lists.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And why there's good front desk people who will enforce the wait lists and the limits on your schedule. Yes.
You need a well-oiled machine for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me a little more about these micro mindfulness habits. This sounds like a way of sort of bolstering your own chi and just taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
In the midst of any kind of crazy day.
Yeah. So, I mean, I consider it like a way to resource yourself, right? And so.
Oh, I like the way you say that.
Yeah. So it's not like, oh, I'm draining my cup or I'm draining or patients aren't draining. It's just like, no, you're being present throughout the day. So for example, I remember one of the first skill, I teach my coaching clients like one skill per week. So their homework is to just practice a skill like 500 times a day. So they get it really embodied. Right?
Uh-huh.
So I remember one of the skills is mood, like choosing your mood instead of having your mood chosen for you. And I remember one of the hiccups I had is I would look at my schedule and I'd be like, yay, but oh my God, like there's a lot of people on that schedule today. And I remember saying like, okay, I'm going to choose my mood today as flow. I'm going to be really deeply committed to flow. And I'm like, I'm going to just keep coming back to flow. And I'm going to keep coming back to flow. And I remember walking out of my treatment room 3 at one point during that day and being like, am I going to get busted? Because this is really easy. Are like the acupuncture police going to come and say, Julie, you're getting away with something?
Waiting for that knock on the door.
Yes, exactly. Because
Ms. Bear don't walk. No, no, no.
This isn't supposed to be easy. But it really was like, I'm going in. I had really good systems. I had some systems established, but it was going and connecting, being really present with the patients, focusing on chief complaint. But then also one of my favorite parts of being an acupuncturist is just chatting with people. So then getting chief complaint, checking pulse, looking at tongue, and then needling and saying like, how's your dog doing? And what's going on here? And then floating out of the room to the next room and doing the same thing. So committing to flow, like I was like, I'm flowing. And if I'm committed to this, then that's how the chi is going to go. So I learned how to direct the chi of my day and my clinic.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Hey, just a quick note. Take that microphone and move it just a little bit away from your mouth.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah. Otherwise, you're getting some little puffs of air in there. And
oh, okay.
Yeah. So I really like this. This is helpful. I feel like I can do it. Choose your mood.
Mm-hmm. And what
that seems
with mood,
that seems on one hand, like, sure, we can choose our moods. And on the other hand, like, really? Most of us, I feel like, are really buffeted by our mood, like hanging on for dear life. And when a good one comes along, oh my God, I hope it sticks around for a while.
Yeah. Well, what I describe is a lot of people, myself included, when they first learn this skill, it's like, oh, I'm going to choose gratitude. And I'm like, okay, gratitude is great and it's really ambitious. But then when you're stuck in traffic or your teenager like pisses you off, then are you still going to have gratitude? And so I like use this analogy of like, what's the biggest bowl of a word, of a mood you can choose? And I remember there was a period my kid had a lot of health problems for a season a couple years ago. And I was just like, man, how am I going to show up for my team, for my patients? And I would just choose presence again and again. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to rest in presence while I see my patients or while I meet with my team. And it really helped me be deeply resourced so that I could be even more present to my kid and their health issues.
So I've heard you mention 3 moods so far here. You were talking about you and an associate. You were choosing presence. Your associate was choosing clarity. You just told us about getting through the busy clinic day. I choose flow. Can you lay a couple other moods on us that you found helpful? Because it's just, I can imagine having a little fishbowl in my clinic, like just for that day where actually I could do this with patients.
You can.
Like, oh, you're having trouble. Well, how about choosing a mood to work out of, and you can't just grab one out of the fishbowl.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So what are some other moods that we could put in the fishbowl?
Well, I will give an example. One of my associates, I remember, because we would choose a mood for the clinic all day, and then we'd hold each other accountable. Because I remember walking out of a treatment room once, and I'm like, and my office manager was like, "Are you flowing?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, thank you. I'm back to flow, right? Thank you. I'm not flowing, and I'm going to recommit to flow." But one of my associates was like, she was like, "I want more patients on my schedule," and she's like, "I'm choosing abundance today." And in the afternoon, she's like, "The DoorDash person who delivered my lunch is now a patient." She's like, "I chose abundance today." She's like, "Seriously, 4 new patients called today." So abundance can be a mood. I think curiosity is a really good mood, especially if you're irritable. Yeah, presence. Sometimes I do choose gratitude. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to really focus in on gratitude today, especially if I'm feeling a little depressed or a little, irritable or hating on the world a little bit because I'm human. I think it's really any word you want, but it helps to have a single word. And then it also helps to sort of check in and say, how do I know I'm embodying this mood? Like, where do I feel it?
Yeah, I can see it having a feeling tone to it.
Yeah. So I think that even some people choose grounded as a mood, or centered. Easeful is another word that I've chosen a lot.
Which one?
Easeful.
Easeful. Or
spacious if I'm feeling very constricted, because I tend to get very enthusiastic and overschedule myself. Then I'll be like, oh, no. Spaciousness is my mood. Even though I'm feeling squeezed in my schedule, can I find the spaciousness in this?
That sounds really fun, actually.
Yeah.
To take something on and say, I'm choosing, first of all, to say, I'm choosing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then watch yourself unwind it.
Yeah. Exactly. And then to keep recommitting, what would happen, and this was crazy to me, is that I worked Mondays anywhere from 10 to 7 or 12 to 7 was technically it. I kept saying yes to the morning people. But I remember I had this biometric tracker on my Apple Watch, and I would always look and I'm like, am I doing a good job? How are my biometrics? But inevitably, my best reading would be Monday at the end of the day, after seeing a full day of patients, because I would choose a mood and I'm flowing and I'm like, whoa, there's no stress. I'm breathing well. My heart rate's great. And, that was right before dinner on Monday night, last patient's on the table.
I think we could put this under the practice management tag.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And what am I managing in the practice? Managing me.
Absolutely. You just got it. That's the coaching that I do. You're managing you, and you're checking in with your body and what is nourishing to me, what is going to foster vitality in me. And that radiates out into how you cultivate the chi of your clinic.
Yeah. So for folks who may hear the word business and feel their stomach kind of, drop a little, or feel their angry chi rise up a bit. Oh, those business people. Whatever. For people that hear the word business and are upset by it, or maybe just confused, I don't even know what to do about it, tell us about the wonder and joy of business and what it can do for you. Not just do for your practice, but do for you as a person.
So I think really it's a system just like Chinese medicine. If you can learn pulses, and if you can learn tongue, and you can learn pattern differentiation, you can learn business. It's a system. It's a system in which chi flows, right? And I think that there's incredible agency with learning that. So I say to some of my coaching clients, if you learned how to learn pulses, you can learn how to market, or you can learn how to communicate with a patient. It's a system, right? And having a bit of a beginner's mind and approaching it with curiosity, it's usually the barrier is I'm not good enough, or I don't know how, or I'm afraid. I'm scared, right? That it's going to change my identity. And so I think that when you open yourself up to curiosity and you say, what if? Like, what is possible here? What am I capable of? What vitality am I capable of? Right? 20 years ago, would I have imagined me doing what I'm doing? No way. But you just keep trusting the chi.
How about 5 years ago? Could you have imagined what you're doing today?
No. I mean, well, I had started coaching 5 years ago, but I never thought I would close my clinic. But I listened to the chi and I said, oh, it's time. I'm actually able to help more people with Chinese medicine by helping people have robust businesses than I am by having a clinic at this point because of the quantum effects of it, right?
How did you know?
My body told me. My body told me. And I had to listen to my heart of like, where's the joy? And I could see my team growing and developing. And I could see one associate in particular. I was like, she's ready for her next steps. She said when I hired her, she didn't want her own practice. And I'm like, she's really grown in her capacity and in her leadership abilities, and she was ready. So I didn't feel like I was abandoning my patients. That was very important to me, that they had a place to go. So she opened a clinic in town and took one of my associates with her. The other associate was hired by another clinic in town. Everybody like had a place to go, and that was important to me. But it was, my body was like, I remember sitting here at this desk and I'm like, Julie, you tell your coaching clients to check where the chi is off. Where is the chi off? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to admit that out loud.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want to say that.
Okay. Great. So I've got another mood that can be helpful.
Yeah?
Courage.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Courage. Cool.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. Well, Julie, Bear Don't Walk, this has really been fun.
Absolutely. Yes. It's such a pleasure speaking with you, Michael.
And I'm really excited about playing around with moods.
Mm-hmm. Good. Very good.
Yeah. I've got a feeling I can use this in clinic. I've got a feeling this is going to show up in clinic, and I'll have an opportunity to invite people to like choose a mood to work with whatever they're working with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just seems like a really gentle way to, move in a little metal chi or bring up a little, courage from the gallbladder, or a little more love from the heart, or a little more presence from the spleen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you. Take good care.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Julie and found something useful that you can apply for yourself in your own clinical work. That part on making a choice to inhabit a quality, it rang true for me. And I think that is a kind of capacity that creatives and those who tend to be high performers tend to share. Namely, being able to notice when a particular thought or emotional state is holding you back, and then making a decision and making an effort to switch the thoughts or feelings to something more productive. It can be as simple as noticing when you're being negative and inserting a more positive thought into the tape loop that you call thinking. It does take a bit of mindfulness, and I think we all know that practices like this require time and attention. And that change, it's earned through efforts. We have plenty of conversations on getting your business gig together. Way back in episode number 6, Value, Integrity, and Responsibility. That one's with Lauren Brown and certainly worth a listen to. In episode 177 with Megan Bullock, a student marketing project. We also have Michelle Grassick in episode 281, Fun with Marketing. And in episode 305, there's Danielle Weil in the episode titled Thinking About Business Should Release Dopamine in Your Brain. It sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Go check those out. You'll be glad you did. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.